What a headshot! What a head!
How's it, guys? This is Dayvy, FPL, and welcome back to the Fantasy Premier League video here on my channel. Now in this video, I'm going to take you guys through the ultimate guide to the upcoming Game Week 35. So no double game weeks, no blank game weeks, it's just going to be a normal single Game Week 35, but I'll be giving you guys an update of double Game Week 36 now that the Man City double has been confirmed. So throughout this video, I'll be giving you guys the usual talking points such as captaincy right at the end of the video, but we'll also be talking about budget strikers as well as which Man City options to go for now that they do double in Game Week 36. Another talking point to mention is going to be Reece James. Should you take him out? Should you keep him? And if you are going to take him out, which options are potentially quite attractive? So that's something you guys are interested in? Sit back, relax, and let's get straight into it. So before we get into all the talking points relating to Game Week 35, double Game Week 36, I want to give you guys a reminder about the European competitions happening tonight and tomorrow night. And the reason for that is that Man City played last night against Real Madrid. That gave us a little bit of insight into maybe a team selection for the upcoming game against Leeds. But the Liverpool selection tonight, as well as the times of the substitutes, will probably tell us if Mo Salah is going to play on the weekend. So that's the Champions League happening tonight between Liverpool and Villarreal, but tomorrow we have the Europa League and the Conference League where West Ham and Leicester will both be taking part. Now unfortunately with those two teams, it is looking likely that they will rotate on the weekend. The reason for that is that West Ham and Leicester don't have much to play for in the Prem, and therefore they'll probably rotate quite heavily in Game Week 35. So just make sure you guys keep your eyes out for those teams. If you own those options, if you're looking to bring them in with those transfers, just keep your eyes on those injury news and their playing time just to make the most informed decisions in FPL as possible. But now let's move on to the big news that was actually confirmed a couple of hours ago. It's Freedom Day in South Africa here, so I am able to record in the midday. A little bit of a change there from the usual recording after work. But the news that dropped a couple of minutes ago was that the Man City double was confirmed by the Premier League. Now if you guys do recall in yesterday's video, there was some speculation about when Man City's double, or at least that Wolves away game, was going to move to. And apparently it was actually moved to 37, but now it's moved to 36. So yes, Manchester City will have a double game week in Game Week 36 of Newcastle at home and Wolves away. Now those two fixtures in my opinion look lovely. I don't really see that many goals being scored. I know this is Man City. They usually do score a multiple amount of goals in each game, but I know that Newcastle have been defending quite well and Wolves also don't generally ship that much. So from a defensive point of view, I think this game is going to look absolutely superb. A Laporte can sell those defensive departments. I can see 2 clean sheets here quite easily. And from an attacking point of view, I mean, you only need kind of 1 goal to get those bonus points from that Man City attack. Now with Man City, the main problem, as it's always been with them, is kind of predicting which options will start both games. Hard enough predicting who's going to start on a weekly basis with that pep roulette, but now predicting 2 games in a row is going to be very tough. But I guess that's the nice thing about maybe using a wild card or a free hit in Game Week 36, because you can take as much time as possible to kind of analyze the game weeks in the European competitions and then maybe predict which players are most likely to start both games. The nice thing about Man City though is if you do bring them in this game week 35, they have Leeds away, which is a very nice fixture from a defense and an attacking point of view. Now going on to Game Week 37, they do have West Ham away. Mentioned in the previous talking point that West Ham are playing in the Europa League competition, so if they do progress into the latter stages or at least the final, there might be some rotation in that Game Week 37 game. But this is basically all you guys have to know. I want to give you guys the news about the Game Week 36 double for Man City. Whether this changes your chip strategy, your transfer plan, that probably did. But I'll be talking about my own transfer plan tomorrow in the team selection video coming up. But now that we've kind of spoken about Man City's fixtures, we've talked about what fixtures they have, the double game weeks, what options should you be looking to bring in to your own FPL team? Well, I'm going to highlight 3 options that I definitely think should be on your guys' transfer plans, because these 3 options will score quite a few points from now to the end of the season. The first option is a little bit of a no-brainer there. It's going to be the main man, KDB, Kevin De Bruyne. The ginger from Belgium has been in massive form of these prior game weeks. Definitely looks to be on good form, and therefore I would recommend going for him, as he definitely is the heart of that Man City attack. From a creative point of view, it seems like he's undroppable at the current moment. If Man City want to continue to win games, De Bruyne is integral to that, and that's why I do think he's one of the most nailed options in that starting 11. He does come in quite expensive at 11.8, but if you guys do own a Heung-min Son, you can simply upgrade Heung-min Son to KDB, as you probably will look to captain him in the upcoming game weeks. From an attacking point of view, I think that KDB is the one to go for. As I mentioned, probably the least prone to rotation, and therefore I think that's going to be absolute gold in FPL. Talking about kind of gold, we've mentioned this throughout this entire season, that Cancelo is one of the best value for money, if not the best value for money player in the game this season. So from a defensive point of view for Man City, I would recommend Cancelo, just because in Game Week 35 he was almost guaranteed to start because he was suspended for that Champions League game. Now there are some other options to go for, Laporte, Diaz now that he's back from injury, but I definitely think I would stick with Cancelo because like KDB is integral to that squad and how they play. Now, he is quite expensive at 7.0, but with the budget strikers we're going to talk about in the upcoming talking point, you might be able to downgrade one of your forwards to a forward Cancelo, and I would heavily suggest that. Now, third and final option is going to be another attacker, just because I think that Man City attack is so great, and I think from a defensive point of view, yes, they might get some clean sheets, but if you're not going to go for a Cancelo, I don't think the attacking threat is that high. So my final player to talk about is going to be Phil Foden, just because he does come in quite cheap, and I do think he's picking up some form over these prior game weeks. Scored last night against Real Madrid, and I do think that Pep likes him in that centre forward position, or maybe even on the wings. So Foden's a little bit versatile, and at 7.8 million, you just kind of hope that he starts, and I do think there's quite a good chance of him starting most games from now to the end of the season. Now, yes, there's plenty of other Man City options to go for. That squad is so deep. We've got a Mahrez, a Jesus, a Sterling, but I just think out of these three, probably one of them is going to score the most points from that Man City team, and that's how I would select these three on a wild card or a free hit. But you guys can let me know in the comments down below, is there a Man City option that I'm forgetting? Am I forgetting an Edison because he's nailed, but I think you are relying on some clean sheets? Would you maybe think a Sterling's a good punt because he was rested in the Champions League? But as I mentioned earlier on, in order to afford these Man City options, you probably need to downgrade in one department, and I do think the budget strikers provide a nice little entry into that downgrade. Forwards this season have been pretty bad, and I think one of these cheap options can perfectly replicate the form of one of the more expensive options, and therefore I'm going to go over three options that I think are my favorites. The first one we mentioned on the wildcard draft yesterday, it's going to be Mateta from Crystal Palace. The only thing about him is that there has been some rotation in that forward line under Patrick Vieira, a Benteke and Eduard. All these options can maybe rotate with him, but I do think Mateta is the main choice at 5.3 million. Now up next is a game against Southampton, and then they do double in 37, but I think they do play Watford in game week 36, which is a relatively nice game. So Mateta's my first choice there, and probably the one that I would go for if you guys want to go for a more nailed option. Just have to kind of hope that he does start most games, but I do think from now to the end of the season should get the majority of minutes. The next player though is definitely the most nailed option to go for. That's going to be Timo Pukki from Norwich. Now unfortunately with Norwich, I do think they'll go down this season, and therefore the motivation to kind of score goals and stay up might not be there, but I do think Norwich can score a couple in the next couple game weeks. So Timo Pukki does come in quite more expensive than a Mateta. I think he's about 6.0 million, but he does have some nice fixtures coming up, but they're not the best in the world, but I do think he's the most nailed to play 90 minutes. So if you want to go for a safe option, go for a Pukki, but if you want to go for a more differential option, the last option, Nketiah, is a great option to maybe look at. So it comes in around that 5.5 million mark and is currently the main striker for Arsenal after Lacazette's form and injury has dropped him off. And now that Nketiah is starting for Arsenal, they are winning games, and that's going to be super integral to their top 4 push. Arsenal have to win games, and if Nketiah is playing and scoring, then I think he's going to start for the majority of them. Up next is West Ham. On paper, not a great fixture there, but as I've mentioned with their Europa League involvement, I do think they'll rotate on the weekend, and Arsenal might be coming up against some relatively bad centre-backs. So Nketiah is one of my favorite options to kind of go for as a differential point of view. Currently, he's my favorite out of these three in my own team, just because I worry about Mateta's minutes, and Timo Pukki with Norwich aren't that great. But these three provide a nice little entry into a downgrade. Maybe you want to downgrade a Weghorst, a Chris Wood, a player like this. I think I would go for one of these three to upgrade to a Man City midfielder. So the final talking point that we're going to be going over before we talk about captaincy is going to be Reece James. So unfortunately, Reece James not start the game against West Ham in game week 34, the double that Chelsea did have, but he might start against United on Thursday. So the reason for him missing that West Ham game was that apparently he felt some tightness in that hamstring, and as you guys know, Reece James has been plagued with injuries this season, and therefore Tuchel wanted to rest him. But I have seen that he wasn't training, but he was last week, so I just hope that he starts against United and maybe gets some returns. But if he does start against United, do you guys think he'll play against Everton? The reason I'm saying that is that it's 3 days after United, and if Reece James is currently kind of nursing an injury, I would maybe suggest that he's benched for the Everton game if he does start on Thursday. Now, he might start both games, that might be a possibility. The Wolves game next is only kind of 6 days after the Everton game, so there'll be enough rest for Reece James, but I don't really know if that's going to be in Tuchel's plans. So that's kind of the big thing about Reece James, is that unfortunately I can't give you guys a solid outcome, because obviously that game on Thursday is going to tell us if he plays on the weekend or not. My current gut instinct is that I do think he'll start against United, but at that right centre-back position, which does limit his attacking threat. So let's say that Reece James does start against United. I think he'll be benched against Everton, and then in the double coming up in 36, I do think he'll only play one of those 2 games. So in my opinion, on my own team, I might definitely consider downgrading Reece James. As you spoke about with the Man City attackers, I might want to afford one of those midfielders. And in order to afford those, I will downgrade Reece James to another option, and one of those 3 options I'll be talking about soon. But I just want to mention again that until Thursday's game does conclude against United, I can't really give you guys an opinion, but I will update you in the deadline stream coming up on Saturday. But now we've spoken about Reece James, and if you guys do want to take him out, what options should you guys look at? Well, now I'm going to highlight my 3 favorite options that I think you guys should look at. So the first option I'm going to highlight is going to be Laporte from Man City. Thanks. Apparently in yesterday's video I was saying Laporte, so I do apologize for the mispronunciation, but Laporte from Man City is probably my favorite option to go for because of that Man City double in 36. Now obviously if you guys can afford Cancelo, I would go for him, but I do think that more people own Cancelo than Laporte, and therefore I think you guys want to double up on that Man City defense. So Laporte comes in a little bit cheaper than Reece James and has that Leeds fixture on the weekend, and if you guys did watch the game last night, John Stones went off injured, so therefore Ruben Diaz and Laporte should probably start that centre-back pairing. Now with that double up in 36, got to kind of hope that he starts both games, but I do think a Man City defense is quite nailed, or at least has been a little bit less susceptible to that Pep roulette. Going on to a more differential option, you guys can go for Matty Cash, offers more attacking threat there, has a lovely game in 35 against Norwich, and then a back-to-back double in 36 and 37, so if you guys don't have a free hit, I would recommend going with the Aston Villa defender. So with Luca Digne out, Matty Cash is going to be the main attacking outlet, and as he showed in the Pride double, is definitely able to get those FPL points. Now the only thing about Villa is that they haven't been playing that well. Matty Cash hasn't been exactly on top form, but I do think with a back-to-back double, you guys have to hedge your bets and go for the 5 fixtures in the next 3 game weeks. And then our final option is going to be a massive upgrade from a Reece James. It's going to be Robertson against Newcastle in game week 35. Now I do really favour Andy Robertson. Is actually outperforming Trent at the current moment, and I think he's only blanked in the last 3 games in whoever knows how many game weeks. So Robertson is definitely a safe option to go for. Liverpool obviously doubling in 36 with 2 relatively nice fixtures in that double 36. And I mean, with them challenging for the title, they're probably going to start full strength most games. But I do think all 3 of these options are perfectly viable if you guys do want to downgrade Reece James or upgrade Reece James. Then Cancelo and Robertson are pretty nailed, but if you guys do want to go differential, Matty Cash with those 5 fixtures in 3 game weeks does look quite enticing. But now finally going on to the captaincy debate, and what I want to say about captaincy is that this week, I think there might be quite a split captaincy, especially if Mo Salah plays 90 minutes tonight against Villarreal. So the reason I'm saying that is that if Mo Salah does play tonight, the full game, there might be some rotation for Liverpool as they do play the first game of the game week. And as you guys know, what does Gundy say? Never back the early kickoff, and therefore if you guys are a little bit superstitious, might not be going for the Egyptian in game week 35. So the first assets are going to be the Spurs assets, and these have been heavily spoken about over on FPL Twitter, as Leicester are expected to rotate quite heavily in game week 35. Now the only thing about Spurs is that they haven't got a shot on target I think in the last 2 or 3 games, and therefore Harry Kane and Heung-min Son aren't to the best of form. But they have to win their remaining games to stay in that top 4 debate, and therefore I think Spurs should put on a good performance against Leicester at home in game week 35. We're then going to move on to Mo Salah, who's definitely probably the most safe option to go for in terms of captaincy. The only thing about him is, as I mentioned, might not be playing the full game. The other thing to note is that Newcastle at home have been very strong defensively, but they have not played the best of teams, and when they did play Spurs a couple of game weeks ago, did ship quite a few goals. I think for my own team, if Mo Salah was guaranteed to play the majority of game week 35, I would captain him just because he's in great form and Liverpool's attack looks quite ruthless. Another attack that can be quite ruthless is going to be the Man City attack against Leeds. I'm expecting quite a few goals here, and therefore Kevin De Bruyne could be a nice little differential captain if you guys do want to go for him. But like Mo Salah, the only thing about him is that will he play the full game? There has been some speculation, even from Pep's press conference, saying that he's currently playing with the injury, and therefore he might be benched in this fixture. But I think like Liverpool, Man City can't afford to rotate with the title being so close, and therefore I do expect the Belgian to be in the midfield department, but like in game week 34, was subbed on the 55th minute. So as you guys can see, 3 very premium assets to go for, 3 premium sides to kind of look at, and I do think the captaincy might be a little bit split, but I do think Mo Salah is the safest option to kind of look at. But as we always go over captaincy, I'm going to go over the projected points from fantasyfootballfix.com, and I'm going to be going over all 3 of these assets and list their projected points for game week 35. So in terms of these 3 assets, Mo Salah is definitely the highest projected point scorer, but you guys can understand that if he does play 90 minutes, the best scorer in terms of game week 35, and he's predicted to score 6.9 points. Coming up second is going to be Kevin De Bruyne with 6.6. The algorithm really does like that Leeds fixture for Man City, and unfortunately Harry Kane comes in last with 6.0. But I guess the debate comes down to this: is Mo Salah going to play the majority of game week 35 or Kevin De Bruyne, or would you rather go a little bit safer and play with Harry Kane or Heung-min Son because they're guaranteed to play the majority of that fixture? Let me know in the comments down below who you guys are captaining for game week 35. What does the Man City double in 36 kind of change your transfer plan, change your chip strategy? We're discussing my own chip strategy tomorrow in the team selection video. But this is basically wrap for the video, guys. Hopefully you did enjoy it. Please don't forget to like if you did and subscribe if you haven't subscribed yet. As I mentioned, team selection coming up tomorrow and then deadline stream coming up on Saturday. But I'm going to be signing off. It's been Dayvy FPL and I'm out. Cheers, bye.